full house expected as Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory go head-to-head in the A-League Grand Final. The transfer season hits a full throttle and the voice of Australian football hangs up his headset in Australia. All that and more coming up on this, the final episode, the season finale of the Far Post Perth, powered by ID Athletic, of course. Visit idathletic.com and, of course, Trio Homes if you're looking to build, redesign or renovate. Visit triohomes.com.au. Blaine Treadgold is my name. Going around the table, a big welcome back to James Renton.
Thank you, Blaine.
We've got Jackson Bassett with us.
It's been a while, but happy to be back for the finale.
What's that shirt you're wearing?
Well, I feel like I've gone from football hipster to just full-on football tragic and nerd. It's from a...
What's the difference?
Oh, I feel like nerd and tragic is like the next level up. This is a team called The Strongest, Bolivian team.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
how the hell did you know about this team?
I mainly got it because of the player on the back. It says P. Escobar, and the P does indeed stand for Pablo. He's the all-time leading scorer in the Bolivian top flight and like one of the cult heroes of South American football. Yeah.
Jeez.
Wasn't there an Escobar years ago who was the one that got murdered?
Andreas.
Yeah. Colombian, wasn't
After the on goal at USA.
Yeah.
That's our era.
Yeah.
That's our era.
That's the only one. Yeah.
Andreas Escobar, the defender.
Yeah. Neil, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in there. Just
no problem.
The almanac. How's the week been?
Do you know what? It's been good this week. We're really interesting. The whole Bryce Cotton story. You've been following.
Yeah,
absolutely. How fun has that been?
Came out today on the podcast with
just
Devondrick Walker.
Yeah, and there's stuff going on. It for I suppose a Glory equivalent, it'd be like if Diego Castro came back and signed for Adelaide United. Like imagine the shit show if the club had let him do that. I mean, we already didn't get to give Castro a proper farewell. We're still waiting on that to happen for him to come back. Maybe there'll be a 10-year thing. 10 years of not giving him a farewell. We'll bring him back and parade him around HBF Park.
Do you know what? Is that the club actually celebrates its 30-year anniversary next season. So there might be an opportunity to get some of these names back.
We're starting a movement. Bring him back.
Bring him back.
Diego
well, we do need another number 10.
Bring his boots, but the Cotton thing, because for quite a while Cotton was here, he was playing at the same time as Castro, and they were sort of equivalents. You know, that foreign import brought in a cut above everybody else and just doing amazing things for the team.
Let's be honest, though, the West has gone full Sun mental headline.
They would have done with Castro if they actually gave a shit about him at the time. No offense, Ben, I know it's changed since then, but yeah, I mean they've gone. But anybody who any opportunity for a cheap headline and a cheesy graphic, but some of the stuff has been
it's not my cup of tea.
Very, very sensationalist and poor, tabloidy. So, but the story itself. Yeah, I know it's a tangent to what we normally talk about, but as a sports story, it's fascinating. Considering that after 9 years here,
and this is something that we're missing a little bit is that narrative because when the 36ers come to town, that is going to be
massive.
that'll knock
circled
West
in the
Coast,
calendar.
Yeah, West Coast, Fremantle, and everything else
will be packed out. I mean, Wildcats games as a spectacle and as an event are great fun as it is, but this is potentially be hostile. You know, they're normally real family atmosphere.
It's like the Euro leagues with flares.
Yeah, we're having the crowd up though, and it's a really good place to take the kids. You see lots of kids go into it. This might be take the lids off the bottle caps because people might be tempted to fire a few in certain directions, and they might not all be tempted to throw them at Bryce Cotton. I think they'd be annoyed at John Riley and Wildcats administration. They've already had a rough time in the last few years. So, just a really fascinating Perth sports story.
Actually, I can throw a bit of a Glory connection in there because the current CEO of the Adelaide 36ers, it was Tony Pinatas to I see at Glory.
And didn't Anthony Radic come from the Wildcats?
Anthony Radic did. Yeah, a few of them did. So there's a bit of a connection there, but not that way.
Who says there's incestual tendencies in WA? We all know each other.
I wouldn't use that word myself.
Degrees of separation, maybe.
That's probably a little bit better. James, kick us off with what's been bad, mate, and as a season finale, like open floor with this.
Bad or good?
Sorry. What's been good? Sorry. Yeah, so that's how excited I am to wrap things
fair
up.
Enough. Well, we've mentioned them before in terms of a good for the season, but and yes, they did get knocked out in the semi-final against Melbourne Victory, but the success of Auckland as an expansion club that have come in and, added some character to the league and encouraged, I guess, fans to come back to the stadium and to show that, the A-League can be an opportunity to grow the game here in Australia. it's important, obviously, for Auckland to help grow the game in New Zealand, with Wellington being as crap as they are. But, for Auckland to come into the league and being a startup team, it's not always easy. We've seen the likes of MacArthur and West United, even though they've had success in various forms, they've still not really been able to establish themselves, and we've had this discussion at length. But I think Auckland, for the way in which they've come into the league and came in with a bang, the fact that they've made Go Media Stadium almost like a bucket list now for those mad A-League fans that want to travel. I guess people would want to go there to be a part of the atmosphere that the port create and just the excitement of being there at those games. They were in ways a fairy tale story this season, but also a little bit funny that they choked at the last hurdle. But overall, they've shown what good expansion teams can do if they're backed well financially and have got a good plan and can execute it and bring in the right people that have a bit of experience that can run things from top to bottom.
There's a real test now to see, right, they've hit this standard. How do they stay at this standard?
That's the big one. And
especially in a salary cap league.
But you'd think also with a billionaire owner that's clearly keen to spend with the amenities they've got at match days, for example, you would think that they would probably find it not necessarily easier, but they wouldn't perhaps find it as hard as some of the current clubs in the A-League do currently to ensure that if they can have that season where they get to the top, let's say like Wellington, for example, last season, who overperformed to a ridiculous degree, and then this season, boom, they've crashed and now they've lost a lot of their good players, even Costa Barbarouses today, who didn't want to re-sign. So, Auckland have set a really good standard, as you said, but I think it's going to be interesting to see just how they go next season and if they can maintain that level that they've already set.
Jackson, keep us rolling, mate. What's been good?
I would probably say the unpredictability of the league. I know that's normally the case with football in Australia, is that teams can go up and down, left, right, and centre. It all changes, so quickly. But I think every team's had their ups and downs this season, maybe apart from Auckland. But even I think they went. They had a spell where they drew like 3 or 4 games in a row and were looking so good. And even they've been on top for most of the year, but they weren't crowned until the second last game of the season. And then even with the finals race, City, Western United, and Western Sydney all finishing pretty close. And it wasn't until like the last month or so of the season that you got a real idea of who was going to be in the finals and how things were shaping up. And even in the finals, we all thought Auckland were probably going to get through pretty easily, but then, Victory threw in a surprise from 5th. And I think that's probably been the most entertaining part, is that, each game you never know who's going to win. Doing predictions is very hard because, one game Glory can come out and beat Auckland, and then the next game they'll lose to the Raw. And even when you look at the bottom teams, even Raw, they were pretty shit most of the year, but they finished quite strong. Even Newcastle in 9th and MacArthur, they had spells where they were really good. Sydney, probably one of the most disappointing, but they had ups and downs. So I think that's probably the best part, is that for a neutral, especially if you're watching these other games, it's hard to tell how it's going to go.
Yeah. No, very good point. Neil?
Not confined to just A-League, but I think the amount of football we have on our doorstep over the past 12 months is a really credit to a lot of people's hard work compared to where we were, say, 10, 15 years ago. It's, as we record, it's the 27th of May. 31st of May last year was AC Milan Roma. We then had the Australia and Palestine qualifier here. Obviously the A-League and MPL as well. And now we're getting into a period with Socceroos playing next week. We'll have the Matildas here. And we've got AC Milan coming back for a game at HBF Park. So, yeah, what were we begging for? Wolves and Fulham, was it? 10 years ago?
Yeah,
we had a visit
and
from
that
Celtic.
Random Malaga
game. Celtic were here. You could count the games we had on one hand over probably a 10-year period, and now we've just been flooded with them. So, and it's a good variety as well. There's your meaningless club friendlies. There's international qualifiers. There's games in the regions. There's A-League. There's all sorts. So I think for me that's probably a step back in perspective of where we're at now compared to when I first started covering football here. I think that Celtic game was the first game I ever had accreditation for here. That friendly.
Yeah, right. What year was that?
I want to say 2011, maybe it was 2011.
2010, 2011, maybe.
So yeah, that's how long. Yeah,
I was in the UK 2011, 2012.
It was 2-0 was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So that's
Lee Griffiths scored, didn't he? And then he came and played here?
Not sure.
No? I thought it was... anyway, we'll figure it out. It was 2011. It was Gary Hooper.
Gary Hooper, that's
Gary Hooper and Charlie Mulgrew scored the goals.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the 9th of July 2011. So I've been doing this for 14 years. And with the amount of games we have now, I can't wait to be in and around the Socceroos next week for the biggest game we've ever had here. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on. Of course, open training sessions and everything else like that. Japan's holding an open training session. There's a bit going on there.
So the last year or so, there's just been loads of football to get amongst, which is brilliant. We are a football backwater. We're not even close to being the major city in Australia, and yet we're having a flood of games. It's brilliant.
Are we a football backwater? Are we still considered that?
Australia's a football backwater.
You reckon?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Well, go on. I've hit a nerve here.
No. I do just question it. I mean, how many World Cups do we have to get to and prove that we can play on the world stage? We've just had the first Australian manager to win a major European trophy. Australian football has been written off time and time again.
One coach has done well in Europe.
No, but what constitutes a backwater?
A place that people come to retire.
Yeah, you probably got a point.
There we are. As I said, 14 years doing this shit.
Well, it's not going to be freaking Dublin, is it? So there you go.
Don't get me started on my thoughts on that as well. So.
My good, I guess, just to round it out, is just the football. I think the football and the product itself gets a little bit of a bad rap. I think since these austerity measures have kind of come in, and they will tighten even further over the next 12 to 24 months, you feel. But it's given more opportunities for young players, and I think it, on that side of the game, has been very, very beneficial. And I think the local standard in the A-League has lifted up and not had to do it by relying, like we have done in the past, on international imports and marquees. So I think that's a real positive. The other side of that is they need to make sure that they can really capitalise on that as far as getting this assembly line of players. If they are going to go overseas, they're compensated well so they can put it back into the system and produce the next one. But just all in all, I think that the A-League gets a bit of a bad rap, but the product isn't as bad as what some people would make it out to be. And the stats across the world suggest that as well.
Well, when you consider who's going overseas and the prices that some of these clubs are paying for our young players, there's clearly been an improvement in the talent of what we've been able to produce, and we've been able to do so consistently.
Yeah.
And the fact that, what was it, the under-20s, they won the Asian Cup. So we've clearly got...
But even just the, the amount of goals scored per game, the entertainment factor and everything else like that.
And it's young guys that are leading it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, see, Neil, we're not a football backwater after all. Take me bat and ball and going home. Keep us going, mate. What's been bad?
Well, when we talk about over-reliance on marquee players or big international players, I think the Sydney FC, with the amount that they have invested into their team, particularly this season, I would have been, if I was Ufuk Talay or the football department, I would have felt probably fairly nervous trying to justify to the board or to the owners why more should be invested into the team in, let's say, foreigners or big players. Sydney FC this season have been a disaster. For the amount that they've put into, especially their foreign contingent, and how much they've relied on the likes of Lolly and Costa and Klamala. And some of the figures they're allegedly being paid, obviously allegedly, but they're not cheap, those players. And the fact that they've got no bang for their buck, really, like no trophy, no appearance in the finals, a very inconsistent playing style, and young players just sort of thrown in out of nowhere with no real sort of plan. I do wonder a little bit as to what their direction will be next season. Are they going to settle on an identity? Are they going to get their recruitment, but importantly, the balance of their squad right? Because Sydney FC have produced a lot of really good young players that haven't come through their academies and instead have had success at other A-League clubs and have instead been sold on. So I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch for Sydney FC. Given obviously there'll be the expectation that they've got to make the finals and do so fairly well and have a brand of football that not only can win them games, but also play a part in assisting the young guys that they do have coming through their ranks. So I think that's going to be a big one to see.
Well, I mean, they've started the clean out like many clubs have. So what does that look like? Caceres gone, Lolly gone, Kaczarski gone.
Kaczarski for me is a big loss. This would have been a great opportunity for Kaczarski to be told, right, you're leading the line. We've lost Klimala. This is your chance. And perhaps if Kaczarski got going, he could have possibly had a Botic season. He does have some fairly good numbers. But I just think, again, it's a bit of a balls up on their part. And, if I'm a Sydney FC member, I'd be going, well, why should I look to renew my membership for next season? At this point in time, given that we're also going to be losing, as you mentioned, some pretty good players and some loyal players to Sydney FC in the likes of possibly Lolly, Caceres, who might be going to MacArthur. That's going to be a bit of a stinging blow. So, again, I think there'll be a very big watch over this off-season in particular.
Can I just say that Tele saying that they're in a transition phase is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. That's never an excuse for Sydney, let alone this Sydney with the amount of talent they've had and the expectations on them. I couldn't believe that when I heard it. Outrageous.
But and that's the thing as well. They spent shitloads of money and everyone knew that they needed a centre-back. Yeah, they spent shitloads on positions and players where they probably didn't really need to be honest. So, I'd have big question marks over the ability of the likes of Tale in particular to extract more from this team and assist with Alex Bam-Johan to construct a squad that has the capacity to be a top team in the A-League for next season.
Jackson, keep us going, mate. What's been bad?
Well, I had MacArthur sticking on the theme of teams who underdelivered and underperformed. When I just look at some of the other expansion teams that have come into the league, Auckland obviously winning it this year, Western United have won a title and sit third this year. And going back, even further to Western Sydney, who've had success in the past when they first came in and have been pretty good this year. Just looking at MacArthur's record over the 5 seasons, they finished 6th, 7th, 12th, 5th, and 8th. I think for an expansion team, you've got to be doing better than that. And just looking at who they had at the start of the season, Yokolas came in. He's been really good, very impressive. They had German, and he was very good. Obviously, he threw the tantrum halfway through the season. Had Holman, Kurto, and goal. There's a lot of good players in there. I think I had them in the top 6 with the squad that they had on paper. And after that first Glory game, they looked on fire. But see, things faded away and there was off-field drama as there usually is. But they're a team that I just thought there'd be a lot more from, and they've just under-delivered again.
Well, they've won 2 Australia Cups, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they just paper over the cracks a little bit, though.
You would think that, to win trophies, that would give you the opportunity, particularly to get into Asia, that you would look to build on that. You would have thought there would have been that progression at some point, and for them to have had the start that they've had to finish outside the top 6, and no one really, I can't say no one really cares about them, but it's like, no, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the impression with a lot of A-League fans, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Neil, what's been bad?
I don't need to elaborate too much, we're just Brisbane Roar. They're like you look at Glory situation and then you can just go, well, at least we're not Brisbane. There is potential to playing in a cavernous stadium. They've gone through the whole Backeries thing, got players coming and going now, and they just look dead in the water. And I think the broader point is that if you're going to have one team in a state, it needs to be successful. You can't afford for it to be a basket case year on year, similar to what we've experienced here, that if you're the only club in WA, you need to be strong, you need to be good because it's all we've got. And Brisbane, similar. I think that they have fallen off from a club that we hated for the fact that they were so good, and also for the fact they've cheated us out of a grand final, and the whole Ange era and everything else, to now just being a complete shadow of that. And it doesn't look like they're going to get back to anything anytime soon. So they've come through a terrible era. They've gotten rid of the coach. They're turning over players day by day as we speak, and they really are starting from a very low base. With the potential to have a massive, again, fan support like they've had in the past, packing out Suncorp, getting good crowds in there. The Den, was one of the active supporter groups that was pretty, was stable year on year. And all of that seems to have died. And they've got a lot of work to do to pull it back. So it's bad, really bad situation. Some of those expansion teams, they're shit and they offer nothing really to the league. But Brisbane are going from such a high base of where they were for so many years to this low is dreadful.
Well, it's one of those sides similar to Perth, Newcastle, Adelaide United as well, is that you can actually connect their history going back before the A-League, as far as being connected to the old Brisbane Lions and everything else like that. So I guess there's even more of an importance on these kind of clubs that do have that history behind them and that historical connection as well. So that's what I guess makes it a little bit worse. For me, they just need to get the hell out of Suncorp. They need to go to Perry Park. They have to go to Perry Park. And actually, funnily enough, I bumped into Chris Coyne, who was back in town at the NPL on the weekend, and I actually asked him about this situation. He said, well, Perry Park's not actually ideal. It's a little bit tricky as far as the logistics around it. I said, well, what about Ballymore? She goes, well, pretty much Rugby Queensland's got Ballymore. They're not going to go near it. So he was explaining that it's a really, really tricky situation, but I think in many people's eyes, they need to bite the bullet, move to Perry Park, get as much support from the local football Queensland fraternity as they can, as well as the state government. I mean, we've all got opinions on how football will probably get a packet of crisps and told to run along out of the Olympic Stadium legacy. So, yeah, there's a bit going on there. I'm just going to kind of take that into my bad, but the state of the clubs, this time last year we were looking at some real worries around Perth and Newcastle. Now, Perth's probably come out of that a little bit, but now we've got basically in the same conversation, Perth, Brisbane, Western United and Newcastle are all sitting in a pretty transient type of phase at the moment as far as what they can do, what they're likely to achieve, how they attract their fans back.
Central Coast as well, chuck into the mix.
Central Coast is another one that, obviously Richard Pale is leaving. We've obviously heard the rumours around Mark Jackson saying, look, he needs the funds to be able to put a side together essentially, or he might be out the door. So
Western and their super.
Western United, and to be honest, there's a lot of murmurings that this takeover deal will actually fall flat on its face as well. So
they had a dodgy, but these guys were dodgy, weren't they?
There's a lot of there's a lot going on around it. So the state of the clubs isn't great at the moment. But another thing, and to use a coined phrase from Stephen Lowy, be careful what you wish for. This is exactly what the owners and clubs wanted, was this. So they do find themselves in a certain situation by their own doing.
Yeah. It's been a quote that's been used quite a fair bit the last 5 years in particular.
A lot of it comes down to due diligence of who's taking over your clubs, and not just giving it out to the first. Like we spoke about it previously, but the Auckland situation was a no-brainer, right?
Yeah,
you've got a proven commodity there, a group that has experience. You know, they're not just coming in just trying their luck. They're not selling crypto out of a disused warehouse in England, so that's where you need to look at it. He got it. There he is. The penny drops.
The crypto coin.
So you know you've got this. They've got other sports clubs, and that's why there is a case for the City Football Group.
No,
there is though. There is.
Even now.
Well, they're financially secure. What they choose to do with their finances
that would be the big one. That's the big one for me.
City aren't in financial trouble. They're not going bust anytime soon. We have to figure out what they actually stand for and what they're about and where they're headed. But they've built facilities. They've brought players through the academy. City's first team this season has a load of young players in it that has gotten them to a grand final. They're doing a lot of things right. The optics aren't amazing around the people at the game. Fair enough. But in terms of an ownership model, it's a group that owns clubs around the world, quite successful clubs. Yeah. So I know that people don't like that, but I think it's something that we as a backwater can benefit from.
Yeah. No, it's not nice to think about. I mean, I've been very, very open that I don't like the franchise system. I would rather have community-owned clubs, but I get the commercial realities of that as well, and where the liability falls. So, I think there's probably a room for a hybrid type model at some stage, but it's certainly not now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where are we up to, boys? Go.
Yeah. I do apologise for piggybacking on what we've already said, but more or less this season, the performance of on the pitch, Brisbane Roar and Perth Glory.
Yeah.
Relative to previously previous sides that have been towards the bottom end of the table, for both Perth and Brisbane to be that far behind. And we've spoken about this at length, so there's no real point for me to dabble on too much. But yeah, the way in which both sides performed and just how embarrassing at times they were when you're a professional team that's representing a region. And we talk about the importance of regional representation here in Australia, and for a growing league like the A-League, to have two teams act as almost impediments to the league's growth. It's disappointing, and no A-League club should be getting into that position. And I think probably as a governing body, that maybe needs to be a bit more scrutiny placed on, the competency of, be it owners or people that are subsequently put into key positions, and whether they can actually build a club and create an identity and give the community a reason to support them. Because, there's been support for the likes of Brisbane, like we've just touched on now. There is support in the sense of the fans that want to go there, but there's no real incentive for them right now. And do the people right now currently believe in those that are leading the club forward? So there are big questions that should be asked about the competency and the ability of these people that are running these clubs that are not doing well, and particularly for Perth and Brisbane, who are doing pretty shit given how they were this season. I think there should be more scrutiny placed on whether these people can actually get their relative clubs up to the very top again.
And this is going back to the franchise system. This is what you risk with that franchise system: is you're not community owned, you're not publicly owned, therefore there's less of a buy-in. It's a team that you can kind of take it or leave it at times with a franchise system, whereas I feel with that public ownership, you've got, if you're a member, you've got voting rights and everything else like that. You've got more of a buy-in, if that makes sense. It's interesting. I think Neil refers to the old lift and shifts kind of thing that you get a lot in America with the franchise system, where
you can move that team anywhere. I guess the trade-off though is back to my previous point about the big groups coming in that are owning clubs elsewhere. They want control, so you risk alienating them by not letting them have full control. And yes, the fan ownership model is definitely one way to go for me for a smaller club. But with a fan-owned club, are you going to raise enough revenue
and that's
to be a top team? I don't know. You'll need investment from somewhere, and then it gets a bit murky around the shares. And I know that Germany is
this is why I've got so much respect for Germany and German football.
They only allow a certain amount of shares to be sold.
Well, it's 49% privately owned. So interesting. Jackson, keep us going, mate. Ugly.
I'm going to be a bit more specific on Brisbane and Perth, and just looking at how they started the season off. At the end of round 12, the Glory had 1 win, 2 draws and 9 losses. That win coming against Brisbane, obviously, in the first Spoon Bowl. And Brisbane were no wins, 2 draws, 9 losses. 7 points across 23 games, 3 of those points coming against each other. It was an absolute disgrace. Particularly the Glory, 7 goals scored and 33 against in 12 games. There was some 5-0s in there, the 6-1s. It was just absolutely deplorable. And I'm glad both teams were able to recover and show a bit more form in the second half of the season, but that just cannot happen again. It's not good for the league when you got 2 teams, 2 former powerhouses, both just so far away from the rest of the competition.
No, let's be honest. I think most of us had checked out by Christmas.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely.
As far as
finals hopes and all that,
just motivation to kind of you essentially would just want as many teams in it as you can until the end. But I know that's not always possible. But and it was certainly their own doing. But The other thing I'll say about the ownership stuff with the franchise model is that Melbourne City and Auckland are both attractive propositions. If I'm an investor looking at buying a club, what interest is there really for a club like Western United, Central Coast? These pretty small clubs. Well, and funny you say that, because there's been talk about QPR wanting to come in and buy Central Coast or a stake in it. And I think the majority of that would come from their success in selling on young players.
Sure, they just buy Glory. It'd be easier since they're pilfering the Glory stocks for players.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But that seems to be more they're using it as a sell-on point rather than focusing on domestic success. If that makes sense.
It probably goes kind of hand in hand in a way. And another thing you need to remember is it's a commercial reality that you do not get anything for winning the A-League. You need to go on and win an Asian championship, or the other forms of income simply come from selling on your academy players or sponsorship.
Get no prize money for premiers played or champions?
No. As far as, if it is, it's very nominal, as far as I'm aware. There you go.
Makes it a bit tougher.
Neil?
I'm going for a specific period of time.
Ooh.
So it was where I that nerd nonsense doesn't interest me at all.
There you go.
God, be on to Star Wars next. The 10th of November.
Star Wars round, or?
I'm glad that died after one go. The 10th of November was the 5-0 loss at home to Melbourne City.
Yep.
Right, that was grim. That was really grim. So that's your starting point. 22nd of November was the Unite round, where we had a game taken off us and had to play Western United in front of 2,000 men and dogs and women and children. At a neutral venue, lost 3-1, miserable. And then we got a point against Adelaide in Adelaide at Hindmarsh on the 29th of November. Sounds like a good result on paper, but it's the game where our marquee playmaker was subbed on and subbed off again in the 89th minute, walked down the tunnel and was never seen again. So in a 3-game period, to sum up the season, a 5-0 battering at home to Melbourne City where we mocked ourselves, a home game taken off us and sent to the middle of nowhere in glory terms.
Yeah.
And the overseas signing, walking down the tunnel and straight on a plane back to South America. Yeah. So that was my my ugly 3-game. But that's where I lost hope anyway.
No,
and that'll happen in the space of 19 days.
No, fair enough. Just to round us out, boys and girls, the Dolan, Julie Dolan, Johnny Warren Awards were tonight. I've got to admit, I did not have a clue when that was, and I'd forgotten about it a little bit, and then all of a sudden it popped up. There is zero fanfare around it, which is an absolute disgrace. It is our Night of Nights. It is our Brownlow Medal or our Oscars or whatever you want to call it.
No aura.
But, there needs to be some work done in that space. And part of this has been, it's something we spoke about last week.
Sorry, just on that, wasn't it? It used to be like a glitz and glam red carpet event, and now it's just like beamed out over the
virtually.
It's really been penny pinched.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I did get the pressers for it this week, but there was no incentive for me to tune in, really. No. Like, why? Why would I sit down and watch that?
Yep. And, so, I mean, just to go back to my point, and we spoke about this last week, and I guess it is a perfect opportunity to talk about Simon Hill's announcement that he will be leaving Australian football in his capacity as a commentator. It's another example of the shrinking media landscape and how this isn't good in any way, shape or form for Australian football, whether you like some of the opinions or not. The opinions need to go out there, and it's these guys and the media that are the first to get these conversations rolling. The less in the media, the less conversations, football just falls absolutely out of the limelight in any way, shape or form. So, that's kind of my ugly, but I guess it is an opportunity to say farewell to Simon Hill. Is someone who I've had professional and personal kind of dealings with, and he's always been great, no matter whether I talk to him about the media or talk to him about the fans or the game or anything else like that. He's always you give him a text and he's always getting back to you in one way or another. So it is a huge loss to football in this country. He has been a real champion and a real protector and defender of the game, going toe-to-toe with FA on many occasions, going toe-to-toe with many other journalists to protect the games at times as well. So, just feel that's a real loss. And as I said, it's an example of maybe the shrinking media landscape.
Yeah, which sucks because he was... when Simon would be commentating a game, he would add something to it, and you hear some of the commentators that are currently now with, and no disrespect to them on Paramount, but there's no real you're ruining the game with cut up, or just like you're not getting the moment that well.
Yeah.
Particularly from a commentating perspective and adding like something to that moment. Like
And-
Simon has so many iconic moments, and you've got some people that are just trying to find too hard that iconic moment.
You can find examples, and I could go all the way back, and I could pretty much recite word from word
It's poetic.
his call
Yeah.
during certain moments,
yeah.
such as Australia beating Japan in 2006.
Or the C Senor for, Isaias.
Yeah. It is going to be a big loss, and it's some big shoes to fill, Neil.
Oh well, yeah. You've got a voice of 20 years,
Yep.
covering the game here. I think your point around he's recognisable from people outside of the code,
Correct.
as well as a personality and an advocate for football, a strong character. We don't really have too many of them. We are a little bit insular, and with all of that we don't have that much exposure across codes. I suppose somebody that would be brought on to shows as a panelist, for example, as a representative from the soccer football media. There's not too many of them. So yeah, when you lose somebody who understands the game so well, both here and abroad, it's a massive loss. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, if they look for a direct replacement, or they try, have a rotating roster of people who potentially can step in and.
Well, I think
become the next one.
Robbie Thompson would be the next cab off the ranks, so
You
to
think
speak.
so? Yeah.
And, I mean, he's very, very well travelled. His work with PSG and everything else like
he's
that.
very good.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but then you got to backfill for him, right?
Well,
So
true,
there's
true.
got to be some new. there's
So I think
gonna
probably
be some new
Teo
voices.
Pellizzari steps in. You got Ben Homer. You've got.
I think Ben Homer is one of the best, personally.
Yep.
With someone that has definitely been a good voice.
You talk about something else that we've talked about too, is this whole idea that they are broadcasting remotely now. It's a studio in Sydney. They're not at the games anymore.
Well, you had,
And you lose a fair
I
bit of
apologise
that.
for doing the crosscode, but Brian Taylor with Seven was commentating the Melbourne Sydney game.
Sharon
MCG.
violation.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I know, I
Sharon
shouldn't, but he was taking the piss out of the fact that Fox Footy wouldn't bring anyone to the MCG to commentate that game. They were all commentating remotely.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Seven was sending everyone out to wherever
in
they
Melbourne, by the way. They were
Yeah, in
commentating
Melbourne.
remotely in Melbourne. And
Yeah.
didn't go to the MCG. Yeah.
So
Christ.
it says a fair bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Just before we wrap up that section, we are getting deep into the podcast here. We did ask some season finale burning questions, and John jumped on board. He has been a very loyal listener throughout this season. He has asked each give a couple of predictions of what will happen in the off-season. Can be individually club-based up to and including entire league-based, good or bad, transfer, management or drama. Basically something that could come round one next season occurring in that time. What are your off-season, let's just say off-season predictions. There's a bit to dig through there.
Stan Lazaridis finally makes a wow signing.
Well, I had similar lines. I'd sign a Spanish number 10. Exact Castro replacement.
Ooh.
Can I go even bolder?
Yeah.
Go on.
You would have thought I would have learned my lesson after putting Glory fourth in preseason, but
I've got those to go through, mate, so careful.
I'm doubling down. By round one next season, Glory won't have lost the game in preseason. Undefeated
win the
preseason.
So we're going to win the cup.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, I think you're...
Well, if is the final being played before round one?
yeah.
Oh, I guess
Final
yeah,
usually is,
well,
isn't it? Isn't the final before...
I'm
Is
pretty
the Australia
sure.
Cup final before or after round one?
I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was like a couple of weeks before.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, but I'm fairly sure it is.
There you go.
Well, if that's the case, we're winning the cup then.
We beat Milan.
Neil?
Yeah, I think some club is going to be in dire straits
Yeah.
financially, or you're going to have some sort of transfer ban embargo style.
Well, it's already on, isn't it, with Western United?
Yeah, but I think it might maybe like proper shit, like
Yeah.
really something that's players are able to get out of contracts and leave and stuff like that.
I mean, if that
That's sort of
was to
messy.
happen,
Disaster.
that's the end of that club, surely. If it is a Western United, surely that's the end of them.
Maybe they just put out the academy to keep a team on the pitch. I don't know. Can't get relegated.
Well, you can't, no.
So you just keep a team out on the pitch of whoever brings boots to the game. Just put them on the pitch and you stay afloat. Like it's, but in Glory terms, every player is a training in preseason by the end of July.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that because just very, very quickly, if you have a look at business being done early, Glory is absolutely on its front foot at the moment compared to other clubs. A lot of clubs have said exits.
Yeah.
Not many have said incomings.
Wasn't this the case though last season? We had a few incomings later. I think Risdon and O'Neill were announced pretty soon after the season finished.
We had a lot of our business done, if I'm not wrong, by mid-June.
Yeah.
I think, or something like that. I think Miller Jusnic was the signing, and then we had like a break, and then we brought in the South American boys.
All right.
I think Jackson's Spanish number 10 will be the problem. Can you get him on board
in time,
or will he roll off with a bit too much sangria in the belly by the time round one starts and can't run until December? That's the fear.
My prediction, and I think there might be a relook of this national second division before it kicks off.
You mean it'll fail?
No. I think there's a lot going. There's a few things going on at a couple of these clubs. We mentioned it last week. South Melbourne is in deep.
Didn't Melbourne board walk away?
No, well, this is Melbourne Knights.
They're all the same over there, aren't they?
Hey, here's a story. Here's a story for you. Going back into the NSL days when Glory and before the A-League kicked off in 2005.
Back in my day,
there used to be. Well, we didn't have any Facebook or anything else like that. So there used to be a forum called gloryboys.net, and the biggest rival was Melbourne Knights.
Wasn't that because of...
And it kicked off because of that.
Yeah.
But I was actually going to put something out the other day because basically we all used to use burner accounts and jump on their forum and then give them all a bit of stick and that kind of thing. And I was going to call for a...
Glory Boys reunion.
It's an old-fashioned forum invasion. But, it's a good bit of fun. But, I think that, they might have to relook this. I think eventually it would simply turn into the best two teams from each confederation, each state federation.
Well,
if they choose to go, though,
something has to work. Hopefully, just get something out better than nothing.
So, what do you do? Do you offer it to the two best teams, and then if they don't want it, it filters down, or how would you?
Well, I just think that it'll probably just be it'll just be run by FA. I think on that basis.
But if a team doesn't want to go because they can't afford the travel and they can't afford the players to take the time off work and all of that, and you decline the invitation.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
Isn't that the problem?
Yeah. And this is the danger you have when you've got 4 groups of 4 and stuff like this, rather than just a league. If you have 10 or 8, doesn't matter. But if you got, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just seems
some groups with 3 and some groups with 4 and everything else like that, it turns into a mess.
Seems a bit complex at this point.
Yeah. But watch this space because
is next year 30-year Glory anniversary?
It is.
All right, I'm going to go.
December
25, 26.
They go I think they might go hard with a retro kit.
I would love that. I would love
30
that.
years.
26, 27.
When was it? It was 95, 96 was the first season, was it? 96, 97.
26, 27 will be, I think, the 30th.
Foundation.
Oh, yeah, because they did it for, 2016-17 season was the retro.
Yeah, because there was a 3-3 against Mariners where they had brought back old mate.
Well, do you want to go on the first season or do you want to go when the club was founded? Because the club was actually founded in 1995.
1995, but the first season.
Yeah.
That's what I'm meaning, yeah.
So it depends on what you want to call it.
Well, if we're going 30-year
the 30
anniversary...
years. Kappa, you reckon?
Well, the Macron contract is up, I think.
Yeah.
Been it.
And there's been nothing said. Everything I've been able to find about it says the Macron contract was extended for 3 years ago, and nothing's been said about it being renewed. And normally you would renew it before the end of the season.
Yeah. See how it goes. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back with more. You're on the Far Post Perth podcast.
What a run! This could be the one! It's in! That's what it's all about! And when it comes to sports gear that helps you perform your best, ID Athletic has the winning formula. From grassroots clubs to elite athletes, ID Athletic provides high-quality sporting apparel, screen printing, embroidery, and made-to-order promotional products. Proud sponsors of the Far Post Perth and passionate supporters of WA community sport. Visit ID Athletic at 84 Howe Street, Osborne Park, or online at idathletic.com. ID Athletic. Build your identity.
Tired of the same old cookie-cutter home designs? Dreaming of a space that truly reflects you? Then it's time to talk to the team at Trio Homes. Whether you're looking to build your dream home, redesign your current space, or simply renovate, Trio Homes is committed to unique designs, local personalised service and quality workmanship. And with former Perth Glory star Dino Julbich at the helm, you'll know you're getting passion and dedication built into every project. Discover the difference with Trio Homes. Visit Trio.
Welcome back to the Far Post Perth podcast. Thank you for your questions. One more that did come through, a little bit of concern. This one came from Davey Boys, and he says that, a bit of concern around why, what did he say here? Why are we signing a player on a 2-year deal who will be 34 when the season kicks off in October? He's obviously talking about Scott Wootton in this situation.
Well, my comment in our group chat earlier was quite simple. I just said it was generous.
Well, yeah.
I think it is generous. I would have gone 1+1 for someone of that age, and absolutely. I think 2 years is got mutual termination written all over it. You know, if nothing against the player, good on him for getting a 2-year deal.
How settled does anyone know how settled Scott Wootton is in this part of the world? I mean, is he one that's kind of going to play out and then just go back to England and play lower league, or?
Not sure. He's been with Wellington for a fair bit.
Yeah.
And Tale brought him in. Was it 2021?
3 or 4 years, yeah. I agree. I think 2 years, but I don't blame a player for pushing for 2 years. And if a club's going to give it to you, brilliant.
Happy days.
2 years.
Yeah, okay.
So, but yes, a 34-year-old centre back. Not that they're 10 a penny, but you can get serviceable centre backs.
Yeah.
You know, we're not signing a William Gallas here.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's not like he's a big name marquee player either. He's absolutely a good centre back, but 2 years is generous as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Boys, A-League semi-finals across the weekend. It did finish over the 2 legs. Melbourne victory 2-1 over Auckland, and over the 2 legs, Melbourne City 4-1 over Western United. Let's get the quick one out of the way. James, Melbourne City, well, this was all over before it went into the second leg, wasn't it?
City toyed with Western United. I'll put it that way. They toyed with Western United. Western United just had no answers going forward or defensively. They were ripped apart, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but up until the second leg, Western United hadn't scored a goal against Melbourne City all season.
Yeah, it was like 3.5 hours or something.
Ridiculous, and they've scored
4 hours.
I think Western United have scored like 53, 55 goals this season or something like that. And so, yeah, John Aloisi was unfortunately, for Western United's sake, he was found out. So, but credit to Aurelio Vidmar, who's done a great job at Melbourne City with relying on the young players and with a lot of guys out through injury, a lot of long-term injuries as well, and to get them into a grand final is a big achievement.
I think you could almost paste in Western United for that bottom 3 finish now. I think once they lose guys like, obviously with all the financial difficulties, if they do have, cause to release players, you're going to lose guys like Botic. You're not getting anything for him, Grimaldi, all these, Leonard.
They've got lots of players with interest.
I think they're going to be in real strife if they survive at all.
Does Aloisi stay though?
Aloisi's out of contract.
That's the thing.
So that's another one there. So I think they're in some real strife now.
Not
Jackson.
good.
Yeah, it's all up in the air at the moment over there.
Yeah. Thoughts, Melbourne City, Western United, anything to add to that one?
Oh, I think City have been pretty good all year.
Yeah.
Man, no surprise. They've got Huon and Cohen, who are very similar sounding players, but they've both been superb. Ugarkovic in the middle has been great. Beach and goal. There's a lot of quality there, but I think they've got a nice mix of experienced players and a lot of young guys as well. With Caputo and a bit more knowledgeable on the Melbourne City players, considering how good they've been. Mehmeti, Romani, Schreiber. There's a lot of things to like about them.
They're hard to get excited about Melbourne City, just as a brand.
He has a brand, but they're decent players. And they may not be like the most flashy in the world, but they get the job done, and that's what you want.
Different if they had a crowd behind them.
It's that whole identity. What's your identity? We don't have one. We're just not Melbourne Victory. That's the only...
They had an identity when they were Melbourne Heart.
They did. And I know a lot of people, even non-football people, who used to get along to the Melbourne Heart, but once that kind of Melbourne City came in, I went, well...
That's a shit.
Yeah. I think they lost a bit out of that. So they gained behind the scenes, but they lost a fair bit.
Lost the top against success.
And yep. Neil, any thoughts?
I think getting 45 minutes into Matt Leckie is a big plus for them heading into the final. He may not start, but you have a player like that up your back pocket who's now appears to be over the injury problems that has troubled them all season. They've also got a bit of depth on the bench. I mean, Callum Talbot is a good player. Zane Schreiber has been functional when he's come in for minutes. So they've got a bit about them, and as already mentioned, it is a good mix. I mean, like Bajic, Tilio, Garkovic, Truan, Cohen, Atkinson. Like that's a good team.
Ex-Glory player.
They're briefly, but they've made grand finals consistently as well, right? Winning is a habit, and they are getting to the business end of the season all the time. So I think they're a dangerous prospect. I am surprised at how easily Western United rolled over given the season that they've had. The first leg caught me completely by surprise.
A month ago, we were talking about them going into that final day with a chance to win the title, or to win the league.
The first leg got me completely bamboozled. Just the fact that how big a gap there was, both in scoreline and in performance, because Western United just did not turn up.
Yeah,
and there's no way they were clawing that back a week later. So yeah.
There you go. Well, the biggest surprise came when Melbourne Victory knocked off Auckland. I've got to admit, I jumped on radio on Saturday morning and I said, I think Auckland's just going to be far too strong. I turned it on. I had a few other things to do on Saturday and I ended up switching it on. And I couldn't believe it when I found the score at 2-1.
Big credit to Arthur Dills.
Yeah.
The way in which he set Melbourne Victory up, especially when they lost Volupile to, I think it was an Achilles. I think it was something like that. Bad injury. Made some adjustments at halftime and bang, bang, 2 quick goals.
But even losing Roderick Miranda and Hamill going into this leg and they having to go to the back 5, which just threw, and Corica spoke about this after the thing. He said it threw us out. We had no idea that was going to happen.
And Victory looked very promising going forward throughout most of the game. And they were able to manage for however long. So they got the second one with Bruno Fornaroli. I think that was around about mid-60th minute or something like that. And to hold on when I think Go Media Stadium had a lot of, it was big attendance, obviously. But to deal with that pressure mentally, and probably the players have been struggling physically rather, big achievement for Melbourne Victory. And they showed why it doesn't matter where they are on the table. They are one of the biggest clubs in the A-League. They find a way to win. So it sets up a very interesting Melbourne Derby grand final.
Yeah, it certainly does. We'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end. Neil, quick one?
just on it again. Mention about depth. Like they did get players coming off the bench, adding a lot as well. I mean, Vergos only came on for the last 10 in Piscopo, but they're guys that can have an impact off a bench for you. Whether they get Langerak back, I'm not too sure, but Duncan has been fairly solid all season as a second choice goalkeeper in the league. So. Fornaroli, look, as much as I was sceptical about any talk about Glory re-signing him, at a particular moment in a game and a ball falls to a player 12 yards out in the penalty box, is there anyone else in the league that you would rather have in that position, even if he is 37?
He's one of the best finishers.
Is there when composure?
There was some horrible defending and keeping him on, and even the Mashash goal. I thought, could there just have been done a little bit better there? But
just it's having a player like that who he's clearly motivated. He's got a chip in his shoulder from not playing as much as he probably would have liked to this season as well. So you could get that sense of feeling in him, getting the start in this game that he was up for it. So dangerous. They're dangerous.
I'm sure we'll go through this a little bit more in the off season, but just have a quick look at Perth Glory's ins and outs so far. From the 24-25 season. So outs goes Jolan Nasmo with his loan move to John Book Hyundai. Jalen Pearman, of course, off to QPR. Anas Hamzawi released. Lockie Barr released. Patrick Wood ends his loan off. He goes back to the Sky Blues, and Riley Warland. Re-signings Trent Osler until 26-27. Lockie Wales until end of 25-26, and Luke Amos till the end of 25-26. And then, of course, over the last 24-48 hours, Sam Sutton with a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, and Scott Wooten with a 2-year deal there as well. So It's not bad for some early business, I guess, but you want to hope there's a bit more to come.
You'd want to hope that there's going to be some serious X factor going forward, because for as much as we criticise Lazar, he made a good point in that Taggart needs a lot of service and he needs help, and we need contribution. I mean, we had one of the worst conversion rates in the league this season, and we scored 22 goals, and the underlying numbers behind it were horrible. So,
but you need to throw the kitchen sink, and we've said this for how many years now, Neil? About an out-and-out number 10?
Yeah, the middle of the park, they're set. You've got Pennington, Amos, O'Neill, Callum Timmins, by all accounts, has signed Brainy, right? So you don't need your 6s and 8s. Right? I think Amos, for me, one of the biggest gaps was having a screener in front of the back four, like a Wande or somebody like that we've had in the past. But Amos looks to have enough mobility to get around the pitch that you possibly don't need one, especially if you want to play a bit more attacking. You can play 2 6s/8s and get away with it. It's the 10s and the wingers. They don't get enough contributions from wide areas in terms of good deliveries for Taggart. They don't have a player to link Amos and Pennington, because they're not going. Neither of them are going to play as natural 10s. If you're going to play them as 2 8s, you need a 10 in front of them, and playing behind Taggart. It's quite simply, they're the two glaring holes for me. Now they've signed every centre back under the sun. It feels like, and they've got loads of them. They've got probably enough fullbacks with Sutton and maybe the Japanese boys sticking around. So it's wingers and 10s. They shouldn't be looking at anything else for me.
Even for wingers, what have they got? Mile, Snitch, and Nasmo if he comes back. Who else is there?
Osler, you can get him as
Osler can play anywhere.
You want someone that's got output. You want output. That's the thing. It's like if you
Lockie Wales, re-signed.
I'd have Wales on one wing, and a signing of a winger on the other side, and then a sign of 10.
Yeah.
2 players, two good players that can play.
And a second striker. What are you going with, Despotovsky?
I think Taggart's durability is really good. And I think that
he did have a couple of moments where he broke down throughout the year, and then there was no 9.
But what do? You trust Despotovsky and Blair?
Do you play a Nasmo there?
Well, I don't know if he's going to come back and be a factor, is he?
I don't know. So it depends on how he goes up there, I guess.
So I'm not too sure. Yes, you might be able to sign. I think where we mentioned about Fornaroli was that if he came in and was a David Williams. So like if Dave Williams wasn't injured, for example, you'd carry him as another 9. Backing up Taggart that could play a game a month or whatever.
Is David Williams done?
Well, that's what we don't know. We don't know if he's going to try come back. I hope he sticks around in some way, shape or form. But that's the sort of player that you maybe want, somebody who's quite happy to play that bit part role.
Yeah.
But go hard for a 10 and a winger either way.
Starting 10 and a winger. You don't need a starting 9, you've got one.
Yeah.
You need a starting 10, you need a starting winger.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Just a few other things coming out of Europe. Last day in the Prem, of course, Liverpool winning the title. Championship playoff, Sunderland will join Leeds and Burnley after they knocked off Sheffield United. Europa, of course, Tottenham getting the win over Man United, which I think all the Aussies were pretty happy about, Neil.
Oh, delighted. I mean, it's the best outcome possible. United are up to shit for financially.
Good, wasn't it?
And another miserable season ahead for them. They don't have the resources, they don't have the money to attract people. Oh, they're on a little jolly now, straight on the plane to Asia for some friendlies. Imagine the buzz on that plane journey over. Half the squad being told they can go, the other half just clinging on. So yeah, I think Ange though, I think he needs to calm down a little bit. He's had arguably the greatest sporting quote of the last probably decade, and he got one, probably had one too many Chardonnays, and then said that the third season is always
the
better than the second.
He did say that,
you've had your one, just shut up, because just don't ruin it.
The main character can get killed off. I think that was what was said as well.
Yeah, just chill on that. All right, you've had a really great trophy that you won, but you still lost 21 league games. So there's work to do for them.
No, fair enough. Of course, Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton relegated. Champions League finals, any thoughts?
Inter.
I think PSG get it done.
I think Inter will shithouse them. I think PSG are the best team with the most exciting players, but Inter, what they did to Barcelona, they were able to hang with them and they had that never say die sort of
Talking about Inter, I was down at Perth Soccer Club the other day, and I was speaking to Gianfranco Saccati, of course, Ali's old man, and he goes, "Did you see my boy? Did you see my boy going toe to toe with Lukaku?" Apparently, there's a photo of just Ali and Lukaku just grabbing each other's shirts and was like looking up like this. Yeah,
mad scenes with Napoli winning the league with McTominay and Billy Gilmore and it was
good Italian names those.
But it's good to see that like players like that actually taking the plunge and getting out of their comfort zone and going somewhere else.
Owen Hargreaves, he got slated for it for donkey's years when he went to Bayern.
Yeah.
And then Jude Bellingham.
And now poor Trent. Poor Trent. Trying something different and getting killed.
But it was unheard of. Gaza did it.
Steve McManaman did it. There was one or two. Michael Owen never recovered after doing it.
No.
Beckham. A player way back was Vinny Samways, who used to play for Spurs. He went out to Las Palmas, I think it was, in Spain. In
Tony
the early
Dorigo
90s.
played. Sampdoria? Was it Sampdoria? Tony Dorigo played
David Platt went to Sampdoria around. I remember that was a big one in the early 90s. Des Walker was a massive one when he left Nottingham Forest.
Who did Gaza play for?
Lazio.
That's right.
He went to Lazio and was still loved
Should have guessed
over
that.
there.
But
Still loved over there. But you could name them, but now there's a little bit more, and there's a few that are trying their hand at it, that it's the Premier League isn't the be all and end all for some of these players. Like McTominay, a player this season in Serie A, and is arguably is definitely in a much better situation than he was at United.
Yeah, he is.
So and was a player that was misused by United so much to his own.
Didn't Gary Lineker play somewhere over there too?
Gary Lineker played in Spain. Barcelona. He played in Japan with Nagoya Grampus 8.
Oh, there you go. Look at you go. The Almanac.
Yeah.
Mr. Neil Sherwin. Let's take one more quick break and we'll might have a quick look to the weekend. You're on the Far Post Perth podcast.
What a run! This could be the one! It's in! That's what it's all about! And when it comes to sports gear that helps you perform your best, ID Athletic has the winning formula. From grassroots clubs to elite athletes, ID Athletic provides high-quality sporting apparel, screen printing, embroidery, and made-to-order promotional products. Proud sponsors of the Far Post Perth and passionate supporters of WA community sport. Visit ID Athletic at 84 Howe Street, Osborne Park, or online at idathletic.com. ID Athletic. Build your identity.
Tired of the same old cookie-cutter home designs? Dreaming of a space that truly reflects you? Then it's time to talk to the team at Trio Homes. Whether you're looking to build your dream home, redesign your current space, or simply renovate, Trio Homes is committed to unique designs, local personalised service, and quality workmanship. And with former Perth Glory star Dino Julbich at the helm, you'll know you're getting passion and dedication built into every project. Discover the difference with Trio Homes. Visit triohomes.com.au.
Final part of the Far Post Perth season finale, just about set to wrap things up for a big season. Of course, big thank you, as always, to ID Athletic and Trio Homes. We'll have a quick look at the weekend. And, despite us wrapping things up as far as our focus on the Aleague and the Perth Glory, there is plenty happening locally. Just to quickly go through some results from the weekend. Jackson, you got us some NPL men's results?
Yeah, quite a few 1-0s this weekend. Bayswater City beating Perth Soccer Club, Perth Red Star beating Sorrento 1-0, the Glory Academy team, I guess you can call them, losing 1-0 to Kingsway. You also had big win for Armidale away at Fremantle City, 1-1 draw between Balcatta and Floriat, 2-2 draw between Stirling and Western Knights. I think there's one. No, that was it. That was that's the wrap.
Yeah, there's some. Just having a bit of a look here. I was just going to bring up the table actually because, there is some teams that are in a bit of strife as far as the table goes in the NPL men's. Bayswater lead the way. They are yet to lose a game. Followed by Olympic Kingsway, who sit 3 points behind. Perth Glory sit 5 points behind the leaders. And Perth, with that loss against Bayswater, now sits, 8 points behind first place. That's the top four. Armidale also sit. They've closed the gap after that bit of a gap that set up in those first few rounds. They sit in fifth on 15, followed by Red Star, Stirling Macedonia with a much-needed result on the weekend. Western Knights, Sorrento, Balcatta, Fremantle City. You could throw a bit of a blanket over the rest, but the one that is in big strife at the moment is Floreat Athena, currently sitting 5 points adrift at the bottom of the NPL men's table. So there you go. A few other things going on, including the NPL women's. There was a big win for Perth on the weekend, which has sent them back to the top. Just try and bring these fixtures up. Where are they? Okay, there's no fixtures that have been put into the squaddy at the moment, so I'll have to try and...
Your first problem was going to squaddy.
What's that?
Your first mistake was going to squaddy.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Unfortunately, that's probably the only place we can get the women's results at the moment, so we'll come back to them at another stage. But, big going on. Locally, boys, anything catching your interest, Jackson?
Not locally, but I did want to shout out, I know we were talking about some European stuff earlier, but the Arsenal women for winning the Champions League.
Beauty.
Beating Barca and Lyon, the two teams who've won the last 9. And this current Barca team is probably the best team I've ever seen in women's football. So the fact that...
What phase was the Arsenal women's coach in? Just out of curiosity. Arteta needs another 6 or 7.
I think it's her first or second season. She's relatively new, but the way they defended was incredible. And Catley and Ford have played most of the season in most of the Champions League games, and they had Cooney Cross as an unused sub. So a lot of Aussies involved in that team, and massive achievement for us. And now all their fans can celebrate a Champions League.
Yeah,
Katie McCabe is due to play for Ireland on Friday in an international against Turkey, and I do not see that happening based on the state of her at the celebration.
Some of the videos have been amazing.
What do we think of Tottenham? Was getting a good rendition from her. So she looked very much worse for wear celebrating that, but great player as well, and someone who scored here during the Women's World Cup.
She scored. Was it Olympico?
She scored from the corner.
That's right. Yeah, right in front of where we were actually sitting. It was absolutely drenched by the time that game kind of finished.
Oh, it was some night.
There's been a few of those.
Just like a Dublin summer. Anything else, boys, before we wrap things up for the season?
The Socceroos. What's going to happen next week?
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
Well,
a typical Popper game.
I'm actually really surprised to see quite a few rested for Japan. I wanted to go see Ayo Tanaka and see if I can get my lead shirt signed, but he's not going to be here. So they've left out some real names.
Nomatoma, Minamino, Ito. I think that a lot of the big attackers are
a lot of the youngsters have been brought in. So which is their right. But does that give Australia a little bit of an edge?
Has to.
I think so, absolutely.
I think a draw and everyone goes home happy.
And then you win away.
Yeah. Or you get the
Saudi.
Get
the job done here so that
I'd rather get the job done here and then
don't get me wrong, it'd be an amazing night here if they get the job done. Edging towards 50,000 it looks like as well.
Yeah.
Good, and hopefully a few people pick up tickets last minute because I can't wait for it. So just don't lose. Just don't lose, and we'll deal with it.
Like a jumbo job.
Obviously, a win would be amazing. So I think Popovic is pragmatic enough to know that they can't afford to lose the game, and that will probably be priority one. Don't lose, and then we will kick on and maybe nick a goal. But I think they'll be tight at the back. It won't be a high-scoring game in any way, shape, or form. Could be a messy night here, looking like a bit of rain forecast. But next thing we know, what that pitch plays like when it's greasy. It's not the most amazing football pitch.
Yeah.
So I think be pragmatic. Set yourselves up, not to park the bus, but to just not concede and to get a result. That's what I'm hoping for.
Cool. There we go.
A-League Grand Final?
A-League Grand Final, Melbourne City. For me.
Bucket victory.
Yeah,
Victory would like that.
Victory to shithouse their way to a win, like 2018 where they finished fourth.
I was going to use the word shithouse as well. They're going to win it 2-1.
I think it's better for the game if Melbourne City win.
Oh, I think so as well, because the Northern Terrace can crawl back with their tail between their legs.
Well, not just that, but I mean,
scuttle back for nothing.
Not just that, but it creates a bit more of a narrative going into the next season and beyond. So, we'll see how that all goes. Boys, thank you very much for a big season. We'll be back. There'll be a few things happening in the off-season as well. We'll see if we can get around to a little bit of Socceroos. There's a few other ideas that we have just to keep the content trickling. Make sure you tell everyone about the podcast and about the social media as well. And a big thank you to everyone for their support and listening, especially the good people at Trio Homes and, of course, ID Athletic, who have made it all possible. This is us signing off for another big season of the Far Post Perth podcast.